Now we bring on Elliotte Friedman, NHL Network insider. And Elliotte, let's talk more about that. Before we move forward, let's look back, because that global series in Sweden ended up being just a massive success. What were your biggest takeaways from the event?
I can tell you this: I wasn't as excited as Kevin and Jameson were, but I really did enjoy it. I think the NHL was concerned about the possibility, for four teams, 4 games in 4 days, would it be too much? Would this be something we'd look back and say they just tried to do too much in one city? And I think the answer we got was no. And one of the things that some people who were over there told me was that it allowed the teams to do some other stuff in the city. A bit more interaction with fans. Willie Nylander went on a pretty popular Swedish talk show, and I was watching the clips. They went viral, and it was really fun looking. I have no understanding or idea of what was being said or what the conversation was about, but you can tell he had a lot of fun, and the audience had a lot of fun. And, I think the thing is, you're showing the highlights here. Nylander had a goal. Forsberg won a game, the first Swedish goalie ever to win one of those games in Sweden. Brandstrom scored. The Swedish players did really well. And I think one of the things here that we kind of saw was that you can take more than 2 teams and you can play more than 2 games. And I like that strategy. I think the more teams you take, that maybe the other 2 teams can go do something with the fans and activate in the city. That's probably something they're going to stick with, and we'll see where they go now. I think I'm curious if it's going to be Germany. I'm curious if it's going to be Finland again. And I'm really a big believer. We had Luke Robitaille on our podcast, and he said we have to go back to London. Mm-hmm. So I would like to see them go back to London and maybe even a city like Paris and do some stuff too. But I thought that was a big success, and the best thing was the games were good.
Hey, Elliotte, just to follow up, this past summer I had the good fortune of being in Copenhagen for a couple of days. And when you go somewhere like that, you realize that things are not that far away from one another in Scandinavia and in certain parts of Europe. So when you bring 4 teams over there and you put them in Stockholm, the family that loves hockey in Prague maybe could plan on coming. Yep. The family that loves hockey in Finland could make the trip. The family that loves hockey in Copenhagen could come in and make the trip. So that's what I loved about it, is that it makes it a worthwhile trip for people to come, where you're going to get a substantial dose of NHL hockey.
I don't know where the Raddicks are from, but I'm sure they could make the trip too. But that's the thing. Like Marco Rossi's family saw him score, and that's a big deal, considering everything he's been through. So I don't disagree with you at all.
Fried, it's been a tough start so far in Columbus. Certainly, they have amazing fans there in the Buckeye State, but some challenges around their team. Difficult start. Patrick Laine was a healthy scratch. Johnny Hockey doesn't look like himself. He too has been benched. What's the latest that you have on Columbus?
I think the thing, Kevin, here, and you played, and I was really curious about this. I don't have any problem with what Columbus is doing, trying to grab more accountability from their players. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We should expect the most out of professional athletes. I think the thing that concerns me the way it's going right now, Kevin, is that there have been a lot of benchings and things just don't seem to be getting better. And that is something that really concerns me a great deal, because the idea of benching players is that they get the message and you don't have to do it anymore. And it doesn't appear that they're getting the message, and more of them are coming. On Laine, I went back and I watched some of his recent games. He has not been very good. I think that's true. However, there's been an idea of playing him at center, and he got hurt and he came back and they put him on the wing and they put him back at center. I just wonder if you have to give up this idea of him playing center like this. He's just a winger and you have to put him at the wing and ride with it. I think the other things, Kevin, I start to wonder about is I don't worry about the kids. Fantilli's played very well. Some of their young players have been some of their best players. But I'm beginning to wonder about where this is going to go with some of their veterans, the Laines, the Gaudreaus, and some of the other players. Are we looking at situations here where maybe they start to talk about some of these players what's your future in Columbus and where does this go? And, I think the organization, it's been a very disappointing season. I think it's an organization that's coming to a crossroads that may have to make some very tough decisions on and off the ice.
Elliotte, let me ask you about the circumstances in Calgary. They have a new GM there, Craig Conroy. They have a number of players that are coming to the end of their contract. He's got to kind of figure out and sort through what is going to happen there. One player came out and publicly said they wanted a trade. What are you hearing about the Calgary Flames and what they're thinking about moving forward?
Well, EJ, first of all, on the player asking for the trade, Zadorov through his agent doing it, Michael Backlund, the Flames captain, at some point last week, I don't know if it was individual or it was in a group. I heard differing arguments about that, but it definitely happened where he made it very clear to the players that the Flames have to cut down on the noise. And there can be no more distractions. There can be no more agents making public comments. They have to worry about playing their game. And after Backlund said that, they won twice and they lost in the shootout to the Islanders. They got 5 out of 6 points. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Look, I think there are teams hovering around the Flames. I do think they're UFAD, Hanifin, Zadorov, and Tanev. People are talking to them about them. I think Lindholm, same thing. I think Calgary's got a couple of different things pulling them, though, EJ. Number one, when do they want to do this? I think some teams would like to do things with the Flames, and I think some teams would like to do it pretty soon. But Calgary's not out of the playoff race, and I think they would kind of like to see how this plays out. I think the other thing, EJ, that becomes a question here is, do the Flames allow any team interested in trading for these players the opportunity to talk contract with them? Because that can improve what you get in return. Mm-hmm. So, and the other thing, too, that a few guys told me about is when you have a player ask for a trade, sometimes a team will draw a line and say, we're not doing this right away because we can't let people think that if you ask for a trade, we're just going to accede to your wishes right away. So I think there's a lot of balls in the air. I definitely think they're talking to teams about these players. I think teams like the Islanders, Dallas, Toronto, I would say Arizona, Vancouver, although I don't think Vancouver's likely. I think all those players have been asking about the D. I wonder about a team like Columbus and Lindholm. So I think Calgary's got a lot of teams that they're talking to and a lot of teams reaching out. I think the most challenging thing is figuring out how quickly they're going to do something.
Elliotte, one more before we let you go. Patrick Kane, we know that he's meeting with teams, that he's going to return somewhat soon. Anything new on where you think he could eventually end up?
Well, I think that he met with about 8 to 10 teams by Zoom or last week, and I think those were things about fit and what it would look like for him. I think he's going to start. I think he's really trying to narrow it down. The one thing I'm very careful about is, last week I heard it might go down to 2-3. It didn't. I do think we're getting closer. I think that day is getting upon us. The teams I consistently hear about are Eastern teams. I think there's a concern about what the West and travel will do to him. I think there are teams in the West are interested. And the other thing is, the most aggressive team I really believe has been Florida. I think that they've really tried to be hard on this. But Florida doesn't have the ability to offer much of a contract. And they might want to do like a 1-year short-term deal and then see where it goes. I think Florida could be a perfect place for Patrick Kane. I'm just not sure that he likes that kind of a 1-year lower number setup. So I look at Buffalo. I look at Detroit. I did talk to Toronto. I don't see that as likely. But I still think Florida, Detroit, and Buffalo have kind of been the 3 teams I've been focused on. And until I'm proven wrong, I'm going to think it's one of those 3, which means I'm probably going to end up being wrong.
Yeah, but then as soon as you're proven wrong, you can say, I actually at the end, I thought it was going in a different direction.
Right at the end. Right at the end.
It's the great Elliotte Friedman. Elliotte, thanks so much.
My pleasure, guys. Have a great night.